Region 1. We have the entire region here with us, all the way from upstate New York until Stamford, Norwalk, Connecticut here. So I would like to take this opportunity for the first few minutes for all the officers to introduce themselves here on the Zoom link so that the entire region can get to see the other centers as well. Bhagya, would you like to start from yourself, please? Bhagya, could you unmute yourself?
Sairam, Bhagya is actually on another call. This is Sairam Chandra from Scarborough Eye Center.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Chandra. And then we have, maybe can we talk, like, is Kara here? Kara's the devotion coordinator.
Yeah, I think she is online. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Sairam, this is Kara Galucci. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Nice to meet you all. I'm happy to be here today on behalf of the Scarborough Eye Center.
Hi, Ron. This is the Syracuse and Rochester Psi Center. And we're happy to be part of this Zoom meeting. Sairam.
Thank you so much.
Sairam, this is Anand from Shelton Sai Center. We have officers Deepika, Prerna, Kiran, and everybody here.
Thank you, Sairam. John, the vendor.
Hello everyone, I'm Deepinder Gupta. I'm Vice President of Norwalk Center.
And we have John and Sharat representing the devotion and service coordinators here. And we also have Ashwini Chegu from Norwalk. She's the SSC coordinator. Our president, Sarika, is traveling right now, and we are missing her here. Sarah. And without further ado, we want to kind of move over to the Dhyana Vahini. This has been almost like we started off in October. And I think it's been a very, very interesting journey. I would like the devotion coordinators to take a few minutes to kind of give us all a recap as to how they proceeded with the Dhyana Vahini in the center and what the learnings were. And at the end of it, we will turn over to Brother Sai Kiran, who will, wrap up the session. And he might even pose some questions to us, and we can pose questions to Sai Kiran as well. And let's make it as interactive as possible. Thank you, Sairam. Can we start from Norwalk, please?
Okay, Sairam, can everybody hear us online?
Yes, we can hear you.
It's a little helpful.
So we had a very nice study of the Dhyana Vahini in the last several weeks. We are very grateful and pleased on how it went. Grateful to Swami really, who guided us through the study throughout. We started this journey shortly after, the week after Brother Sai Kiran introduced the topic back in the middle of October, I believe. And so we started the journey on October 22nd, and we just concluded chapter 14 last Sunday. So this came at a perfect time. And we were very, very happy with a few things, I think, from our experience. Just trying to pull up my notes.
The boxes, that's the main screen, the gallery.
Okay, so we studied all the chapters, pretty much one chapter a week. Started with the power of meditation, then we went into discussing the real goal of meditation, and Swami talks about how to control the mind, and we talked about unlocking this spiritual experience by some of these meditative practices. We then talked about cleaning and feeding the mind, connecting with our Atmic form. Prakash Uncle really drilled in on that when he was doing his comments and experience sharing. We also then had a discussion, very healthy discussion on learning to not look for God, but you really yearn for God. And we talked about what yearning means and how we took it from Swami's lessons in the Vahini. We then moved on to one-pointedness and purity, spiritual development and growth. and what it means to conduct ourselves so that we can start to feel this thing called liberation now in our lifetimes rather than sometime after. So how do we use meditation to get closer to our goals for liberation? And also then we specifically talked about practicing meditative efforts and eliminating pride, attaining peace and contentment, and through discrimination. So we had a really nice study. I would say we were pretty skeptical. At least half the center was a little skeptical, to be honest, as we started. But I think with the experiences that we shared, we really appreciated Swami's teachings in different ways, especially since we all had different experiences with meditation. The nice thing also, just some observations of mine as a devotional coordinator as we work through this is, for 14 chapters, we were able to inspire 14 different members of the center to lead us through each chapter. That was really a nice win to show our devotion to Swami and to be dedicated to this study circle, throughout the Vahini. We were very skeptical. As I said, I think if I were to estimate, we had 50-50 buy-in on meditative practices before coming into the journey of the study. And I think we are a lot farther because of the study of this Vahini in our own separate ways. Members challenged each other to share personal experiences with their meditative practices. Folks shared relevant practices of their own and what it means to have meditative practices and meditative life, and this whole thing about one-pointedness and what it really means to day-to-day practical lifestyle. So that was really nice to see. So in short, we really enjoyed it. We're looking forward to continuing the studies of the Vahinis, and thanks for your time and attention this morning.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. And can we have Shelton?
Sairam, this is Karen speaking. And good morning, everyone. Yes, I think I do want to mention that it felt like a daunting topic at the beginning and the opening as well, because everybody feels self-conscious as to, do we meditate? And we have this preconceived idea of meditation being just simply sitting on a cushion and trying to focus on something so I just want to open that, because that mirrors a little bit what Norwalk has said. We basically, discuss the content of Swami's approach to it, and he clearly has approaches from all the different layers that we have. He goes from the beginners to the most profound. So there were pieces for most of us there, and I think we addressed that meditation reveals the eternal and the non-eternal, untruth versus truth. That purity is defined by the quality of our inner vision, seeing beyond ourselves. As Swami says, conversion of the outfaced to the infaced. And that purity is defined as the intensity of our willingness, the yearning that was also mentioned, to reach God or to reach the self. And he speaks about the gaining inward vision. And I think we discussed that quite a bit, that it's looking within and self-inquiry being necessary through everyday life and practice. And that meditation needs to be, I think we also discussed that meditation is something you can focus on your daily life and your daily task when you're one-pointed. Let's see. So throughout, we found that throughout the book, Swami gives us the how of meditation, from repetition of the name, just something simple and mechanical first to quiet the mind. I think we all were responding to that. And what is really wonderful about his book is that he speaks of, it contains form and the formless in his book. He always goes back and forth, which really gives us an exercise in understanding, in grasping and experiencing some of what he says. And I think that was reflected in her conversation. And I think a point was that, you know, to take away the daunting aspect of meditation, he really points that it's less ritualistic, even though we start by certain practices and basic things, that it's more of a life practice to change your vision. That was emphasized in her conversation, but it's hard to speak for everybody because I think everybody gains something different. Let's see. Yeah, so he spoke about what meditation is, and what it's not. I don't know, it might be, if anybody else has anything to say as to how we collectively, the points that I'm missing, it's very hard to speak on the collective perspective because I did not gather information from others. You know, I'm just gathering from our discussion in general. Okay, go ahead.
Sairam, this is Deepika. So I think initially when we started the Vahini, we were all thinking meditation is just sitting in one spot and, trying to quiet your mind. But as we read the Vahini, which we have not finished yet, but we will be in a couple weeks, we realized that it's not just, sitting in one spot, and you need to look inwards further, and it's about your character. It's about what you think, what you say. Meditation comes in different forms. Sairam.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Kiran, filling in for Anil from Shelton Center. So, Kara, could you please share your center's learnings with all of us? Sairam.
Sairam, and I love what people have shared so far, because what you have shared also reflects the process that we went through. Our center is quite small, so we chose certain passages to focus on each time. But one of the things that always strikes me when I read Swami's discourses, or especially his books, is how, like a master teacher that he is, he repeats the same themes over and over and over again. And we may not get it the first or the third or the 20th time that we hear what he has to say, but as we grow, one day it clicks in. So I don't think so much in terms of new learning as deeper understanding of the messages that he repeats for us again and again. Or another way to think of it is that his work is like music, and he puts in certain motifs that you hear again and again, but each time you hear them, they sound just a little bit different, and so you can appreciate it even more each time you hear it. So with that said, one of the lessons that we really got out of Dhyana Vahini was the idea that building good habits and character is as important as meditation, and even has to precede it. This motif gets repeated in different ways throughout the book. On the one hand, Baba stresses the immense importance of meditation as the foundation of all sadhana. On the other hand, Baba says we can't succeed in meditation without good character and good habits first. The two things go hand in hand. We strive toward Atmic bliss, as he puts it so beautifully, with meditation, and we begin to purify ourselves by meditation. But if we don't purify ourselves outside of meditation, we won't succeed. So our study of the Dhyana Vahini has led us to a deeper appreciation of just how important developing our character really is. And we spent quite a bit of time on that. This idea is reflected in the key lesson about the difference between binding and liberating actions. Baba says we need discrimination and a way to spiritualize everything we do, not separating what we think of as sadhana from our everyday life and activities. And some of the other centers have already touched on this very important idea that meditation isn't separate from our daily life. In our center, we talked a lot about removing defects in character and the tenfold sins. And in much of our discussion, like much of the Dhyana Vahini itself, it revolved around how to live a good life and the right relationship of ourself to the Lord. That was as important as the techniques of meditation itself. At the same time, Baba constantly extols the necessity for and the power of meditation. So these two things go hand in hand, the meditative practice and working on our whole life. As other people have said, we learned about the need for one-pointedness as a skill, not just for meditation, but also for life. Baba talks a lot about how we need concentration in even the simplest things we do. And that's the first step of the meditation. We talked about how one-pointedness is the opposite of the monkey mind, and how we have to learn to tame the mind, and then we can purify and strengthen memory, imagination, and will through meditation. Baba says mantras can help with this. And we found that there's no higher or more powerful mantra than the name of God. And we talked about how even a 3-minute meditation, sometimes with just the name of God, can help to center us again. We learned about the 3 phases of meditation: concentration, contemplation, and meditation. Concentration below the senses, the starting phase. During contemplation, we begin to focus on the name, which also evokes the form we visualize. And then meditation, the phase of grace when we transcend. In time, even the name and form and sense of self disappear, leading us into samadhi, Swami tells us. We learned about the importance of contentment and that it doesn't make us lazy. Contentment comes through meditation and bestows peace. It gives one a basis for liberating action rather than binding action. And Swami taught us that the most liberating action is the desire for God. It brings grace for the journey. Only grace overcomes. The last sentence of the book reminds us that through the path of meditation, we can reach Brahman. And what a lofty goal that is. That's the ultimate goal. As I was preparing this summary for our group, I came upon a few quotes in the book that really stood out to me. So I'd like to share those with all of us. Meditation is the very basis of all spiritual practice. Meditation is the royal road to superconsciousness. Cultivation of the Atmic experience, which is pure, convincing, and self-transcending, is essential for all. It is also easy, for the Atma is the mother of all, and hearkening to the Atma is like the child hearkening to the mother. Everyone is competent to have that experience. In fact, it is everyone's right to have it. That is why the Atmic discipline is being treated by me as so important. The knowledge of the world is not real knowledge. It is relative knowledge, the knowledge of the non-real. The knowledge of the eternal absolute is the real knowledge. It is acquired by meditation. The fire of meditation and yoga will reduce the sapless activity of the mind to ashes. Immediately thereafter, the knowledge of the real will flash. It will shine with undiminished effulgence. Its light will never go out. For those established in this real knowledge, there is no past and future. All ages are in the present, in the actual moment of experience. The secret of success in meditation lies in the purity of the inner life of the spiritual aspirant. The success is proportionate to the importance the spiritual aspirant gives to right conduct. One should not count the cost, the time, or the trouble. One should await the descent of the Lord's grace. This patient waiting is itself part of the austerity of meditation. Sticking unfalteringly to the vow is the austerity. And finally, this is my favorite quote: everyone has the right to achieve this high degree of success. I do not say this in just a quiet tone. I declare this loud enough for all quarters to hear. Knowing this, meditate and advance. Do meditation and progress. Realize the Atma. So Swami has given us so much in this slim book. And I think someone said in the introduction that we could spend forever on this one book and still get more things out of it. And I think that's really, really true. Our experience of discussing the passages that we read has brought a lot of lively discussion, and we really enjoyed it. So Sairam, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Kara. That was a lovely summary of Dhyana Vahini. And we are looking forward to Syracuse and Rochester joining us in the path of Jnana Vahini that we will have a kickoff end of March. So we are very excited about that. Now over to Brother Sai Kiran. A quick introduction for those who don't know about Sai Kiran. Sai Kiran studied in Puttaparthi in the primary school from grade 1 through 12. Correct, Sai Kiran? Please correct me if I'm mistaken. So a lot of experiences with Swami, a lot of internalization and a lot of practice too. So we are waiting to hear more from Sai Kiran on this topic and his learnings and his experiences. Sairam.
Thank you all for taking the time and joining today. I also want to thank Swami for showing us the path to look back into everything that he has written as far as Dhyana Vahini and some of the other Vahinis in this multiple series that we have been trying to internalize and understand. And I think this is a beautiful opportunity. I want to thank Sandhya Kahir and all of you coordinators at the regional level who are championing this effort and allowing us to, all devotees in our respective centers, to look into Swami's literature and benefit from it, to truly learn. With that, very briefly, I think everybody's summary of what their learnings were is absolutely spot on. Honestly speaking, as I kept listening to the last speaker, I think it was Kiara, you basically summarized everything that I put in this deck. There's really nothing for me now to show or to speak to. Very well summarized, and I do agree with all the salient features, points that were made, not only by Kiara, but also the other centers. Ourselves here at the Norwalk Sai Center, I think we benefited a lot. I can speak for myself. I think I benefited a lot. When Sandhya had initially reached out to me for, picking a Vahini, it was a very difficult choice for me. And clearly for months at length, I never gave it a response. I never could pick one of the Vahinis out of the many that Swami has written to choose. It's like choosing the favorite from your own children. And there were two other Vahinis that, we had done earlier. And one fine day, I was told, you will be doing Dhyana Vahini. So I was volunteered, as is very typical in Sandhya's style, to do Dhyana Vahini. I should actually say, this was Swami's direction probably to her, and that flowed onto me. And this was one Vahini that, despite being a student in Parthi, I never read. Simply because of the fact, as all of you echoed, I thought it was too daunting. What am I as a child going from, grade 1 through 12 during that period? What am I really to do with meditation? How will I benefit? Will I even understand the concept? I more enjoyed reading Bhagavad Vahini or Ramkatharas Vahini and some of the other, Prashnottara Vahini, where there were questions that were being asked of Swami and Swami was responding. This was too much above my grade, if I may, so I never looked into it. And I think this was Swami's way of making me read it. So, truly, I learned quite a lot through this process of reading through the book. And even this morning, it was great to go through all the 14 chapters and essentially kind of, reminisce and try to, see how much we've learned and what is it that Swami is saying. I think Kiara mentioned, or one of the other speakers mentioned, in his immaculate style of being that wonderful teacher, he reinforces that point on multiple points through the Vahini, reminding you, like that teacher, that this is the concept. This is what you need to take away. So I'll sort of probably not go through the entire list here or all the slides that I had prepared, but hope to probably share a few thoughts along the way. The first slide, please, is just a summary or my takeaway from Dhyana Vahini. So these are the key takeaways that I have from the entire Dhyana Vahini. The first one being my understanding of dhyana or meditation in a simplification, given the limitations of language, is that it's a tool that trains and cleans the mind, which I think is the machine, to look inwards, control the senses, to get rid of the impulses and the fruits thereof that we crave, to ultimately achieve Brahmaikyata, which is essentially the oneness with Brahman. I think one of the previous speakers, briefly alluded to this. This is the last statement of Dhyana Vahini, wherein he says, he bestows that you will achieve, Brahmaikyata, oneness with the Brahman or self-realization, if you are to use the roadmap that he has laid out in Dhyana Vahini. The second one is that meditation is the royal road to superconsciousness for Samadhi. And he says, contentment, though, once he goes through the chapter, he roots meditation and connects it very closely to contentment or santosha. Next click, please. And the last takeaway I have for reading or understanding this is that meditation is a first-class cure to the illness of worldly existence, or the bhavaroga that we all have, the constant cycle of birth and death. And he says, through meditation or through using meditation as a tool, you can actually ultimately rid yourself of that constant cycle. So, the next few slides in this whole deck basically are some of the summaries that I have from each chapter, just for the benefit of anyone wants to take away what did we discuss in each chapter. And I think all of you have sort of summarized, so I don't really know whether there is a need to go through all of this necessarily. We can potentially use this time a little differently. So I'm not going to go through the slide deck now, because I think I was really, everyone has summarized it. Unless someone wants me to go through, I'll go through, but otherwise I'll just narrate two stories and we can open the floor for discussion.
Sure.
How do you like it?
That sounds good.
Okay. So one story which many of you may have heard, and the other nobody here has heard. So the first story goes like this. I won't name the person, but he is a well-known person worldwide. There was a day when he was wanting a student, of course, in Swami's institution, a senior student, had the great blessing of, being with Swami and being a personal attendant with Swami in Swami's residence. This is way back in the 80s. And he was hoping to learn how to do meditation. And he had questions for Swami and he would get directions from Swami. No unique directions besides what we have already read in the Dhyana Vahini. So there was one day when he was meditating or trying to meditate, following the teachings or following the directions Swami had given him in terms of focusing on the breath, etc. But he was finding it really, really difficult. And I think one thing that we took away as a center here, and many times this came through probably all the way from chapter 1 through chapter 14, that meditation, one word that was used today was daunting. Others said meditation isn't for me. Many said, I just can't do it. And I think what is really nice in this book is Swami acknowledges that it is difficult. Swami acknowledges that it is not easy. And yet he champions and keeps saying that don't give up. Keep at it. Something as simple as he says, start with the 1 minute. I think it's in chapter 13 or 14. Then he says, almost the last few chapters before he's going to close, he says, from 1 minute, move to 3 minutes. Let many days, weeks pass. And if you feel that you're able to focus your mind, go to 6. And then he stops almost at 9. And he says, you can stop at 9 after many months of practicing if you want. And he, in that context, he says, you can take it up to 30 minutes if you feel comfortable about it. Now, like someone alluded, in this book, he's given, it for beginners, as well as he has given it for somebody who wants to achieve samadhi through meditation. And he says this is the 7th yoga of the Ashtanga yoga, because the last one becomes samadhi. Within samadhi, he says that if one particular thought persists and one ideation persists once you have achieved samadhi, then he says it becomes savikalpa samadhi. And in the end, he says if even that thought or that ideation does not persist, it has to be one thought or one ideation. Once even that doesn't persist, then it becomes bhavanashana. There's no more. Like then there is no meditator and there is no meditation left, right? And that's when your will becomes one with the divine. Right. The second story that I'm going to talk to you about is related to this part. Going back to the first story, the student was finding it really difficult to focus his mind. And as is common for all of us, there was a lot of, a flood of thoughts going in and a lot of noise, if you may, in the context of meditation. So many things are happening in the head, in that one moment. And that could be due to, he didn't necessarily say what it was, but probably due to pressure of exams or, some other personal issue. But he was struggling with it and everyone was waiting for Swami to come out of the door to give his darshan in the afternoon. So Swami opens the door and Swami comes out for darshan. And obviously this boy now, because suddenly when Swami opens the door, there is pin drop silence, it. And so he opened his eyes after, not really getting on to starting the meditation. He wasn't yet there. So he opened his eyes and obviously was having Swami's darshan. Swami finishes the round and Swami comes back. And Swami is letting the devotees whom he has picked for interview, he's taking them into the interview room. As he's taking them into the interview room, Swami is waiting. Everyone's getting in and settling into the interview room. Swami walks up to this boy right in the front there. And Swami says, it is in the depths of silence that you can hear the voice or the footsteps, right? In the quote, people say you can hear the footsteps of God. Swami that day didn't tell him footsteps. Swami said, it is in the depths of silence that you can hear the voice of God. Where is this depth of silence? Right? I just want to quote. The Swami says it is in the depths of silence that you can hear the voice of God. And Swami pauses and Swami says, but you know what? It is in the depths of silence that God can hear you. So I think the takeaway here is it is important to quieten the mind, because think of the other end, who you are calling out to. If there is going to be so much chaos in the in the radio frequency that you want to tune to, you're never going to be able to convey your message across, and the Lord will never be able to hear. So the point being, it is really important to use this as a tool to quieten our minds and allow that voice of yours to connect to the Lord. This was something that I was kind of reminded of when, I read this, read through, some of the chapters of this book, and I thought it'd be something nice that, we could all learn from, and so I wanted to share it. Now, the second story that I have is my own classmate. We were in grade 12, and in India, for those not familiar with the system, after grade 12 is when you go into your medical school or engineering or commerce to do BCom, etc. So it was our last opportunity as a class that year, grade 12 students, to meet Swami, get his blessings, and move out into the so-called quote-unquote professional world to decide our futures. So we were in Parthi, we finished our grade 12 last exam, and while we were waiting for the exam to be done one day prior, we had sent a card to Swami in Vrindavan. Swami was in Vrindavan. It gets hot in Parthi. He would move to Vrindavan for some portion of the summer. And once the holidays started, Swami would go with some of the students to Kodaikanal. So Swami was in Vrindavan. We sent a card to Swami asking if he could call us and bless us in Vrindavan. So we got a good news after the last exam was over that Swami has called you all, grade 12 students, to come to Vrindavan. Exam was over. We didn't pack our bags for going home or anything. We were ready. We changed our clothes and jumped into a bus that was organized for us, and we headed over to Vrindavan so that we could be there by evening darshan. We were there by evening darshan, but we got a little bit late by the time we reached there. But Swami was kind enough to ask us all to sit in the Kalyana Mandapam, not in Trai Vrindavan. So he saw us in the Kalyana Mandapam. We were in a way a little bit disappointed that we won't be able to do it, get more time with Swami. We've come late, it's evening, and now, Swami's schedule is a fixed schedule, so we won't get much time. At most, we probably might just get Parnamaskar. But we were going to be happy with whatever we get. So we went in, sat in the Kalyana Mandapam. Swami came, Swami walked between all of us and gave every single one of us Parnamaskar, and he gave us a pair of clothes to, as a goodbye. While on the one side, we were happy that this is happening and we are getting Swami's blessing. On the other hand, we were like, is this going to be the last? That's it. Are we not going to get more of Swami to be with and see? So I think, collectively, as that session was over, we all knew coming in the bus as we were getting late that, this is going to happen. Let's all pray that somehow we get a little more time. So as Swami was finishing up the last row of boys giving Parnamaskar, we started asking Swami, can we get more time with you? In a very, first two times when some of us voiced our prayer to Swami would do this thing where he would sometimes, of course, practically, at a physical level, of course, he would say, So as if he's not able to hear. And then after that, he said, okay, I will see you tomorrow morning, he said. Our hearts knew, no bounds at that point. We were extremely happy. And he asked us to be accommodated in the hostel. So we got our respective, places to stay for the night. And next morning, Swami saw us after he had finished the interview of the devotees. So this time, though, only the 12th standard boys, we were called inside Trai Vrindavan. And we had never imagined this. And where in Thai Vrindavan, it was not in the central hall within Thai, but it was where he sits usually on the jhula with all the boys in the evening. So we sat there. I was sitting right at Swami's feet. I had his feet in my hands the entire time. He was with us for about 1.5 hours. And all he was doing was asking each of us, "Tum kya karte hai next? What will you do next?" And he satisfied every single one of us, asked us, and then spoke to us about, generally how we should behave if, for those who were going to be going out for medicine and things like that. So a lot of this was happening, and we were all very happy. I was on top of the world because I was sitting right at his feet. Then came a question which none of us expected. And the question from him was, "Hey boys, everybody happy?" And we said, "Yes, Swami, very happy." Okay. How many boys? Distinction. Everybody rose their hands. How many boys above 85%? Few hands rose. Chala santosham. There were a good number of hands though. How many boys above 90%? No hand rose in the hall. And me being cowardly at that point, because it's very difficult. You cannot predict whether you'll get above 90, and you cannot lie to Swan. Both. So me being at the feet, I just looked. I didn't even pick my head to look up when that question was asked. And suddenly what we heard was the next question, and not everyone was looking at Swami. So the next question I heard, I can say, is, "Yenta, how much?" He said. We were like, somebody rose hand. Who is this person? And the next voice we hear is 95. We were shocked, and now this is when all of us turned around to see who is this who can say 95. And Swami was so happy in that moment. He waved his hand, materialized a ring, asked the boy, he was sitting right at the back, asked him to come forward. The boy came forward, and Swami put the ring in his hand, and he blessed him on his head, and he said, "You will always be successful." Now, what is the backstory? Why am I saying this? Why have I narrated this to you? This boy, he was indeed a brilliant kid. Always. But there are two aspects that I want to highlight here. One, ever since this boy, and he was a very orthodox Tamilian Brahmin. This kid, ever since he got his sacred thread on him, he would always take his morning and evening meditation very seriously. So much so that all of us would be, studying and things like that. This boy, he would start meditating, and many times totally lose awareness of his surroundings. He would just be sitting and meditating. Many a times, we often used to also see him doze off. You could see that, in his meditation, he's doing that. But he was so disciplined and meticulous about it that he would, no matter what, sit, whether he was unwell or whatever. And he did this all through grade 11. He did this all through grade 12. It was board exams. It didn't matter to him. He would always meditate. And we would think, many of us, including someone like me who was a potential competitor for him, in my petty mind used to think, this guy's losing time. We are all getting time. Why not? So, but he would always keep acing. He would always be on the top. He and another boy who is now the vice chancellor, he was my classmate as well. Srikant, they would be in competition right at the top. The point I'm trying to make is the practice, I still don't know how, but the practice of meditation, the focus, and the fact that, at one point where Swami talks about how you can resonate your will with the divine will, so much so that what you say or what you think can actually be manifested by virtue of, developing that kind of synchrony with the divine will in some ways, or you could transmute it potentially. It's a very tall order. And I'm not saying that a school kid doing this, made this happen. I think the credit here is that when you say this in front of the Lord, and He's the one who is the giver here, right? And He says that I stamp your will right here. I think that day if that kid had said, Swami, I'll get 99%, he would have gotten 99%, no matter what. Right? So I think what I learned from this whole thing was just how, how disciplined that kid was and how he took meditation as something that he really enjoyed. Swami says this through the book, do it and enjoy what you're doing. It should not be a force. Do it. You don't want to dislike it. And this kid enjoyed it. We were fools, probably. And, it was a beautiful example of how his will synchronized with the blessing of the Lord to manifest itself. And in the book, Swami says, through tapas and yoga, you can, of course, achieve a lot of extraordinary powers, but it is through japa and dhyana that you achieve extraordinary love for the Lord. And Swami being, what his avatar was all about, of course, was seva, about prema, and about asking mankind and sort of reminding us to, do namasmarana and to meditate, to focus on what is important, what is permanent, rather than, be lost with things that are impermanent and transitory. So with that, I'll just close here. These were the two stories that I thought, instead of going through the whole deck, which was beautifully summarized by many members across the centers, I thought I'll just focus on this and, offer our completion of Dhyana Vahini to Swami. And I think one very last point that I think I learned, and I want to say this for myself, I don't mean to speak on everyone's behalf or to be in any kind of an advisory tone here, but the one thing that kind of kept coming back through the book, as some of you have mentioned, is Swami says that, just being in, just mere reading of all this and our discussion, intellectual discussions about all this is meaningless if we cannot practice it. And so I think what I want to remind ourselves as we close Dhyana Vahini here is, however difficult it might be, I think what we have learned and what this book urges us to do is really to start looking inward, closing our eyes actually, and sort of seeing and going towards that journey of who we are, and just quietening ourselves, controlling ourselves internally so that we can be good human beings externally as well. As people have discussed, these are both interconnected. So I think the last thing that I want to say is, let us start practicing this. And I know and I appreciate and acknowledge that really people have done. Many members in our own center, have started to spend some time, maybe in a week or maybe in 2 weeks, to just quieten themselves, meditate, and go down this path. So I thank all of you, for doing this and for engaging in beautiful discussions that we've had, very honest discussions across centers. And may Bhagwan give us the strength, the courage to persist, and for those who have not tried to start, and for those who are trying to keep going. Sai.
Thank you, Sai Kiran. Thank you very much for those two stories. And I love that if you can repeat that first quote, remember it's in the depth of silence. Can you say that again a few times so that we can all internalize it?
So, in the depths of silence,
In the depths of silence,
the voice of God can be heard.
God can be heard.
It is in the depths of silence
Depths of silence,
that God can hear your voice.
God can hear your voice. Thank you very much. And we will share the notes, slides, everything with our region so that we can get inspired. And it's kind of like a reference. We can go back and look at it and be inspired more anytime we have questions or Dhyana Vahini. But I would love to open up this forum now for at least maybe next 15 to 20 minutes to have questions for Sai Kiran, or Sai Kiran can have questions for any of the members or anybody online. So please unmute yourself, and this is your chance to have more interactive session here. Sai Ram.
Can I raise a question?
Sure.
Sairam, I thank you, brother Sai Kiran. Awesome stories are like those pictures, they say so much, way more than the book can ever do. So thank you. We'll share the notes. I have a question really out there. This is something we discussed here also at the center when we were reviewing the Dhyana Vahini. The question I have for anyone out there is, can folks share some practical things they learned out of the Dhyana Vahini? Anything that can help you today or is already helping you today, etc. Whether it be meditative practices, like the best time to meditate or best way, or how meditation has helped deal with life challenges, right? Or anything of that sort. So any practical guidance would really be nice to hear from anyone out there. The mics are open.
Sairam, like I practice meditation for like several years. Just I wanted to share, like if anyone want to do meditation, like if you think of doing it for 40 days commitment, I think that will stay for a very long time. Like if you commit for 40 days, generally that means that the meditation you will continue for rest of your journey. And another thing I want to share is like meditation is not something you can do whenever you want. You need to, one suggested thing is like, do it sometime in the morning where your stomach is little empty. Or if you're doing in the evening, like have at least 2 hours gap or something after eating food or anything like that. So that will really help to facilitate the meditation. So.
Thanks, Anand. Anyone else online?
Saidam, this is Karen. Something practical for me, very powerful, is breath. Because breath is experience and meditation is going from the intellect to experience of something greater than the intellect, a different identification. So breath is a very immediate way to go from the mind to the heart. But of course, you do that with practice, and you can start sensing the difference between a busy mind and the present moment, because the breath is a reminder of the very imminent present moment, the very potent present moment. And to practice breathing, there are many ways to practice breath. And for me, it's something that works. I can do it anytime during the day. And it will bring me back to the present moment. But you pick something, you find something that speaks to you that you can practice with. You surrender when you breathe. You can focus on surrender. You breathe in, you can imagine the form of God, of Swami, and you can let go in the out breath, for instance, surrender. I'm giving it up. I'm giving whatever it is. It will be taken. So that is a little exercise, but there are many, many out there. So breath is, I think, a very good way. Saira.
Very nice.
I'd like to add something. One of the things we talked about in our meetings was the idea that even 1 or 2 minutes of meditation can be very valuable. And that's something that Kiran brought up. In reading the book, it can be so intimidating, especially that part where Swami talks about how the best time to meditate is between 3 and 5 a.m. and you should sit in the full lotus position, something I have never, ever been able to do. I can barely sit cross-legged. And you have to sit on a little platform that's 2 or 3 inches off the ground with your deer skin and then a white cloth over it. And that whole thing is so overwhelming to someone like me. It's not something I could ever really aspire to. But like he says elsewhere, if you have 1 minute and then you make it 3 minutes, and then maybe you could make it 6 minutes. So one of our members shared that for her, when she gets overwhelmed, sometimes she will just stop wherever she is, as Kiran was just suggesting with the breath, and just close her eyes for a moment and say, Baba, 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 and that will bring her back to her center. So I like to say from my different experiences of meditation that there's no such thing as a bad meditation. You may not reach samadhi every time. You may not be able to spend an hour or 2 hours, but it's never, ever, ever wasted. It may be that you close your eyes and you just become mindful of something that you're feeling that you were trying to suppress. Or you may have that moment of surrender, like Karen says, where you're just feeling so overwhelmed that all you can do is say, Swami, I give this to you, please help me. And that can be a very profound meditation. So like Kiran suggested, we have to just dive in and actually do it. And once we take that first step, Swami will always help us, because I have read in different things that he said that we cannot meditate. What we can do is concentrate. That is within our power to do, concentrate. And then it can move into contemplation. But that third step of meditation, the real meditation, is pure grace, where his power and presence come in. And so all we can do really is make ourselves available to that. Like that beautiful, beautiful story that you shared, Kiran, about how in the depth of silence, we can hear the voice of God. And in the depth of silence, he can hear our words. Our job is really to put ourselves into the opportunity to meditate. Sairam.
Thanks, Kiran. Anyone else? Anybody from Syracuse and Rochester centers? Would you like to share your thoughts? Or any questions from your area, any centers?
Anyone in Norwalk?
Anyone?
Yeah, turn it on.
Sairam. One of the practical approach would be using the bhajans itself as a experience for meditation, which is Swami often has said that during bhajans we need to clap the hands. So he even said that when you clap the hands, it's like when you're sitting under the tree, if you clap the hands, the birds on top will fly away. So what he reminded is the thoughts that go in our mind. When you start clapping to the beat in a bhajan, that you don't have any more thoughts at that point in time. So that's one of the reasons Swami often emphasized the need for clapping your hands while singing bhajans. And what happens now, when you sing your hearts out, and when you sing loudly, the hearts out, with clapping your hands, that is probably close to that state of meditation.
Anything else anybody wants to add here?
Sairam, this is Becky from Scarborough, and my own experience was that, like you said, Kara was saying, you show up and it's God's grace that does the rest. My own experiences of being able to stop the thoughts actually didn't happen in a bhajan or anything like that. It happened in a small chapel at a Catholic church. They believe that Jesus is present in the Holy Communion. I went there, my mind stopped. One of my children had darshan of a woman saint other than Swami, and he also had the mind stop. And what's interesting for me with the meditation is I get up at 4 a.m., not so much to meditate, but because I start work at 5 a.m. And I sit down and I don't do, the cross legs and everything because I have osteoarthritis and I have blood clots. I'm afraid of crossing and doing too much. So I say, Swami, it's in your hands, and please do not let me fall asleep. And so sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So, but somewhere also in the book, it said the love is what's important and the love will take you there. So sometimes the meditation is just love itself. And you're focusing on Swami and he does the rest. And thank you, Sairam.
Thank you. Sai Kiran, could you please share the whole thing about being in present, the be happy that, you shared with us? Maybe it will benefit the entire region too. So that talks about the, being in present and mindfulness. And I think it goes with the whole topic of meditation too. Sairam.
Yeah, so I think one of the points that was alluded to earlier as well, in that, for those who become, true, how should I say, when you start using meditation to your benefit and to control, to control your senses as well as to progress further along the spiritual path, alongside, just the benefits that you're getting from it. One of the things that Swami clearly mentions is that there comes a stage where you are not having there is no past and there is no future. Everything for that person, that individual, the sadhaka, is all in the present moment. It is in that very moment, and that's why many yogis, and including, of course, Swami is beyond all of that. When they look at you, when you go in that divine presence, they can see past many births of yours, and in both directions, because for them they are seeing all of this in that one moment, in that one sight that they're looking through you. Many a times Swami would look at you like he's piercing through your soul. It's because he's seeing everything in that one sight. However, the reason I'm connecting this to your question, Sandrika, is I think what we were discussing earlier was the aspect of when Baba used to, bless everybody by saying, be happy, be happy, be happy. I think many of us used to miss the point and focus on the happy aspect of the be happy. And the reason we are missing the point is we are not seeing or discounting, if I may, the be part. And that be part is the now, the moment. And that is the mindfulness that I think you are referring to, where it is important for us to, through meditation, where you are being, in that moment, and you're not allowing, your mind to run helter-skelter. And I think you can do that both in the awake state as well as in the meditative experience. And I think the takeaway there is that it's important to start practicing, as Swami has alluded in the book elsewhere, it's important to practice other things in our external sort of view, or, such as cultivating good qualities, good habits, staying away from some of the bad qualities, anger, etc. You have to practice all of them externally before you can go into a meditative sort of, experience and try to look into yourselves internally. And therefore, I think what this translates to is it's important to start practicing being in the moment every waking hour, every waking minute, before we can think that the only way we can experience being is when we close our eyes and meditate. It's not going to be possible. I think unless you start practicing externally, that's when you'll realize them internally too. So.
That was very powerful. That's something, it was because we all, as you said, that the happy is the one we were all focusing on. So now that B is a little bit more to think about and reflect on and constantly remind ourselves. And I think meditative practices help us to get to that stage. Anything else, anyone?
Yeah.
Yes, Sarah? Vijay?
Sairam, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Sarah.
Sairam, this is Dr. Krishna Rao from Rochester and Syracuse Sai Center here. Thank you all for sharing your experiences, and thank you, Brother Sai Kiran, for sharing your wonderful experience and stories. As some of you have alluded to the fact that meditation is not for everyone. Some of us cannot focus even a few seconds, let alone minutes and hours. But in another context, Swami also defined that meditation should be a part of your life. From dusk to the dawn, it's like Shatakam Yoginaha, Swami says. That is, whatever act you're performing, whatever task you're undertaking, to be after the God. That should be actual meditation, like in a practical way. And so then in that case, you will be performing all your acts like in a proper way, like spending money, spending energy, spending time. All should be in a focused way. That should also be a part of the meditation. That's another context. Some of us who cannot follow standard meditation practices is another alternative way of doing it. That's I want to share that. My own views on that.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. I think it was a very engaging discussion as a region, and I think this is one of the first times we've had like an entire region come together and have this very rich discussion. We hope that everybody will be able to join us on the next journey on Jnana Vahini. That's going to be that's 40 plus chapters. I think we have a lot of chapters, and we will do a because we don't want to kind of not meet for a whole year, because it might take a whole year to do Jnana Vahini. But we will try to see if we can meet up every quarter as a region so that we can discuss our learnings till that. And again, the devotion coordinators, please use the best way to kind of works for your centers to study the Vahini. It's not reading the Vahinis, but it's studying the Vahinis and internalizing them, and come back and share your thoughts, your center's thoughts, your members' thoughts with all of us, because that makes it a bigger discussion, very enriching, and truly a journey together to Swami. Thanks, everyone. We will close it with our prayer to Swami, and then we will do Om Tat Sat Shri, and then we will do our Aarti. Okay? You can stop here. You didn't get to complete the slide. Can you complete the slides? We can share the slides with everyone. Or if you have a question,
no, I just wanted to know a little bit more on that slide when you spoke about concentration, contemplation, and meditation. Like you had given a very brief explanation of that in the slides. So if you can expand that a little bit, like what is.
Yeah, so that is
each one is like a stepping stone to attain meditation.
Right. So Swami has referred this to in multiple discourses. That's where I took it from. He doesn't necessarily mention it directly in the book, but I had reviewed this when we opened, and so I just had it on the slide there. So concentration, Swami says, is for everything that is below the senses, like for us to coordinate. And let's say, for example, pour oil from one container to another container. These are things that every animal, including human beings, needs to use in any task that you're doing. If a predator is pursuing a prey, it needs to have a certain amount of concentration so that it can actually do that. So concentration, Swami refers to as the very basic step in terms of developing focus and to be able to put your mind in one spot rather than allowing it to jump from one branch to other. And Swami refers to this as Markata Dhyana, which is monkey meditation. And the next thing, and Swami also connects this concentration first step to to not just something that is being exercised below the senses, but also in the the next step, he refers to it as it should graduate to contemplation, meaning where you not only are able to fixate your mind, but go deeper. And the way Swami refers to this is, in the context of being able to introspect and do self-examination after you have been able to stall your mind on a particular aspect. And then the third one is when he says, as was previously referred to as well, of course, it has the component of God's grace after you've been able to stabilize and you're able to look inwards to actually take you to that experience where it becomes meditative, where it becomes a shunya and you're able to actually stabilize and exist in that plane where you can now have stillness, and that with practice that period prolongs. And he says that is where it goes above the senses. He says meditation is above this. Contemplation is that intermediate stage where you are graduating from something that every animal can use, to its own benefit, of course. So you go from things that are below the senses to an experience that is above and beyond your senses, wherein your senses are actually controlled and you no longer have the experience of those senses necessarily, meaning your senses are not being pulled by the impulses or the vasanas that are existing within us from many births, in fact. So it's a stage which helps you demolish or uproot those vasanas or impulses, is what he refers to in this book. And in typical Swami style, he also, connects these three elements to saying concentration is the one you think you are. Contemplation is what others think you are. Meditation is what you truly are. And so, again, he shows you that graduation and splits this very beautifully. Again, the best master, Sairam.
Just 1 second, that reminded me of your story. As the second story you talked about how Swami said to the boy that, in the depths of silence, you can hear the voice of God, and you can hear the voice of God and God can hear your voice. The way I took that when you were saying it is exactly what you just summarized in the last couple of minutes, is that when we say we hear the voice of God, because in regular study circles, aside from Dhyana Vahini, we've always said, you cannot understand God. Humans cannot really understand. We have to have faith. We have to trust. We hear these things because we try to, bad things happen, good things happen. You sometimes cannot connect the dots. But what I heard you say in that story, or to me, what Swami was saying is, when you're in that state, whatever that state is, you can start to connect the dots with what's really going on. So it's not about having that 95% score or 99% score, but maybe if you failed and you're still doing that, now you at least understand the master plan a little bit better because you're connecting with him. So I see it on both sides, the good and the other side, the duality of it.
Absolutely.
Sairam, that was nice.
Thanks, Sairam. Let's close with our prayer. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for thee. Om Tat Sat Shri Narayana Flowing from his blessed hands, holy creation. Where is the greatest love, Lord, the divine protection, be love in love. Like to see be love in love. When you see
जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
Silent everyone. Thank you.
Sai Ram.